Alright, so the goal of this video is to show you how to set up an Anaconda or Conda environment for doing data science and geospatial data science on your local computer. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need to do is install Anaconda. So if you Google Anaconda or Anaconda Python, it should come up. I already have that up here, so let's just navigate. So it's going to look something like this. Products, what we're interested in is just individual edition. And then you can go through and download this. Once it's downloaded, you're going to end up with an executable file, and what I have here is for Windows machine, so it might look a little bit different if you're you own a Mac or whatnot, but it is installed on Linux and Mac. So once you have your executable, we'll just double click to run the execution. And I'm not going to go through this whole process because I already have it, but I just want to show you a few key steps. Okay, so the first thing you want to do, I'm just going to drop another, I'm going to put a B on the end of this. Well, see, because I already have this folder. So anyway, it's going to install, here it's going to install under users, my user and this computer, and then in the Anaconda 3 folder, I just added a C there just because I already have that folder. And then on the next slide, so on the next screen here, you definitely want to make sure you click this Add Anaconda 3 to My Path Environment variable. It says it's not recommended, but it's safe and it's helpful for for executing code and using tools and stuff. So anyway, you definitely want to click on that, and then you just click Install, and it'll run through the install process. And that's effectively how that works. It's pretty simple. Okay, again, I'm not going to go through all that because I already have that set up, so we don't need to do that. Okay, so first off, before we get into looking at Anaconda or setting up a Conda environment, what are kind of the key modules or libraries that you're going to need to have installed to do just general data science? Okay, so the first key library is NumPy. So NumPy is used for basically working with numbers, working with multi-dimensional arrays, matrices, vectors, whatnot, in Python. So pretty much all the data science stuff sits on top of NumPy. So it's very key. It's very important. One thing nice about NumPy is it's actually pretty fast. It's written in C, so it's a really tight back end to do a bunch of data science work in Python. So anyway, that's pretty much a requirement. The next requirement is pandas. Pandas is used for reading in data tables like CSV files or Excel spreadsheets or whatnot. So working with like tabulated data. If you're familiar with R, it's kind of the same thing as the data. It allows for like a data frame type structure similar to the data frames in R. Or like tables if you use the tidyverse. Anyway, so those are kind of key. For data visualization, generally you want to install matplotlib. Matplotlib is based on the plotting functions from MATLAB, so that's why it's called matplotlib. And most of the other graphics or data visualization libraries just sit on top of this. So pretty much any data science environment you're going to have matplotlib installed. Seaborn is another data visualization library that sits on top of matplotlib, makes some stuff easier, can create some different types of graphs, so generally I install that also. So those are the data visualization. And then the other key component for just general data science is the SciPy environment. So this is for like scientific computing using Python. Generally, I don't install SciPy directly. I install scikit-learn, and then it's going to install SciPy kind of in the background. So scikit-learn is for doing machine learning, like supervised learning, unsupervised learning with Python. So we're going to play around with this a little bit later in the course. So anyway, that's important to install. So anyway, so that's kind of your general machine learning environment in Python. Another environment we'll look at that's sort of maybe a little bit more specific, but I think it is useful, is Interpret ML. Interpret ML is for trying to provide interpretable results for like black box classifiers like a random forest or something, or a support vector machine model. And also provides access to more glass box models like generalized additive models and explainable boosting machines. So we'll also play around with that in here. It actually works really similar to scikit-learn. So it's not, the learning curve is not very steep. So anyway, that's kind of my general, just standard data science environment. Now let's talk about some of the libraries or modules that you'd want to install if you want to work with geospatial data specifically. Okay, so if you're going to work with vector data, so, point line, polygon data, generally you're going to install GeoPandas. GeoPandas is basically like an extension of Pandas that allows for reading in geospatial data. So you're basically storing it as a table, and one of the columns in the table is going to store the geometry information. So it basically extends Pandas to deal with geometries. So that's generally a requirement. That's kind of the base requirement for dealing with geometries. And note that this package does have a lot of dependencies. So if we go here to get started, and then let's just get installation, you can see it has some dependencies. So NumPy and Pandas, Shapely, Fiona, PyProj. So these things should get installed. There's some other things that are optional that you can also install on your own. Okay, so similar to GeoPandas, Rasterio is basically the kind of default tool for dealing with raster geospatial data. So reading in data as raster grids, single band, multi-band, being able to read in the values and treat them as arrays and use like NumPy and whatnot. So anyway, that's Rasterio. So that's also going to need to be installed into the environment. Those two are probably the most used of the geospatial environments or modules or packages. A couple other tools that we're going to install is are EarthPy. So So EarthPy provides some just general functionality for doing things like working with multi-band imagery and elevation data and whatnot. So we'll install that. And then Whitebox Tools. This one's a little bit different. I'm going to talk a little bit about how you install that now. It's a little bit different than the others. And this provides access to a wide variety of tools. There's over 450 geospatial tools that you can run. It's actually really easy to use, so I like it a lot. And then lastly, one other package that we're going to install that I find really useful is this PySpatial ML, which allows you to take a model that's been trained using something like scikit-learn and apply that back to raster data, like where a prediction is made at a stack of cell or a stack of values stored in different bands, so you can make spatial predictions. This isn't like a full-blown package yet, so here you can see how we're basically installing it from like the GitHub repo there. Okay, cool. So anyway, that is kind of the basics there of what we want to install. So now let's jump back to Whitebox Tools, because I did want to note how you do that. Pretty much everything we're just going to install using Conda, but Whitebox Tools actually calls to tools that are stored in a folder. So you actually need to get all that on your machine before you can use it in Python. So in order to do that, you want to go to Software here, download Whitebox Tools, and whenever this loads, I'm not sure why I said unavailable. There it goes. You can click on the build that you want here. So if I click on Windows, you have to fill this out and then hit Submit and Download, and it'll start downloading it. What you'll end up with is a compressed folder, and once you uncompress it, inside of it you'll have this WBT folder here. So what you want to do is put that folder basically in the same directory that Anaconda is going to live. So for me, that's going to be my C users path, my C users, and then my user location. So I've already done that. So I basically copied this folder, and then I moved it into C users, and then my account, and you can see that it's right there. And then once you install the Python module, it basically links to this, and you can use all the tools. So it's generally easiest if it's in the same location that Anaconda is at, which you can see is the case in here because Anaconda is in that same path.